Hi guys, my name is Shahab and I want to talk about Bicep, a domain-specific language which uses declarative syntax to provision resources to Azure. Of course, you could use Azure Portal and it's easier when it comes to learning or experimentation or creating a once-in-a-lifetime resource. However, when it's about deployments that you need to repeat them based on configuration parameters or environments like production and development environments, you need to differ some resources between these two environments. It's better to use an IAC, like infrastructure as a code. There are several tools like Plumi and Terraform for that purpose, as well as Bicep. Benefits of Bicep, though, is that it supports all resource types and API versions, no matter whether they are GA or in preview. Besides, it's way simpler than ARM templates, and the resource manager orchestrates all the dependencies between these resources that you are going to create, so you don't need to be worried about which resource should be created first and which next. All of this will be handled for you. Bicep is also free and open source. Also, the Bicep files are idempotent and they are describing the desired state. That means that no matter you run the Bicep files once or multiple times, as far as there is no changes in there, the final effect will be the same. I think that's enough for talking. Let's see them in action. I'm in Visual Studio Code, and in Visual Studio Code, if you go to extensions and search for Bicep, you will see that Microsoft provided us with an extension that will assist us in writing and maintaining our Bicep files. I already have that extension installed on my machine, on my Visual Studio Code, and here I'm gonna create a new Bicep file. I'm naming it azdeploy.bicep, azdeploy.bicep, yeah. Uh, every Bicep file has a target scope. That means that resources in this Bicep file are gonna be located in which kind of target scope, whether they be in management group, in a tenant, in subscription, or in a resource group. By default, the target scope is resource group. So if we just don't mention anything about the target scope, it will be considered as resource group. Here in this azdeploy.bicep, I'm gonna create a resource group for our demo purposes, and resource groups are resources that are located in a subscription. So I'm going to target the subscription. Uh, for creating a resource, you create with the keyword resource, then you're giving it a name, rgdemo bicep, for example, and then you need to choose the type of resource that you're gonna create. In this example, we need resource groups. So it's Microsoft.resources / resource groups, and I'm going to choose the latest API version here. Then, as you see, this extension helps me with some IntelliCode code and auto completion. So I'm gonna say I need the required properties. The name of the resource would be rg-demo-bicep, right? And then the location of that would be north, let me say, for example, West Europe, right? Here you see that if I hit Control dot, it says create new parameter for location with default value. So let me just clean up a bit of code. Here it creates me a parameter. Parameters are values that we could pass their desired value for them through the command line when we are running the Bicep files. Here it's if the default value is West Europe, but I could overwrite this value with whatever value I think for my environment or based on the configurations that I have for running this Bicep file. I could decide what it could be. I'm just gonna rename this to region for now. Okay, so here I have a Bicep file that the target scope is subscription. That means that I want to deploy these things into a subscription, and I'm creating a resource group in here with the name and in a desired region, which by default is West Europe. To deploy Azure Bicep files, in the command line, we could use az deployment command, and I'm gonna deploy into a subscription. I'm creating a new deployment, right? And then I would say the location of this deployment. It's not the location of the resources that we are going to create. It's the location of this deployment that we are creating. I'm gonna say it would be West Europe, right? And then I need to pass a template file, which a template file, which is our az deploy.bicep, and then we have parameters, and in these parameters we had the parameter region here, right? If I don't pass any parameter, it will be West Europe, but I'm gonna override that with my with the value of North Europe. By the way, if you don't know how to authenticate your machine and install Azure CLI on your machine, you could check my previous video that I went through all of the steps that is required so your machine is authenticated and connected to a subscription in your Azure environment. You could use the double dash what if operation on deployments to see what would happen if you want to deploy these resources to your Azure environment. It might take a little bit of time. I'll just pause the video and we'll be here with you. Okay, it was quicker than I thought. Okay, so here it says that we are gonna create a resource, and that resource is RG Demo Bicep. It will be located in North Europe, the name and the type of the resource and the ID that it will have after deployment. So I'm gonna run my command without the what if, and I'm gonna say no wait. It's a global command for Azure or CLIs, and it just releases the command line for us, so we don't have to wait for the operation to be finished, and we could continue whatever we are doing at that point. Okay, until this is finished. We said that Azure Bicep, like the Bicep files, are modular. That means that we could have modules defined, and we use those modules in different pipelines or in different scenarios. So the modules are just normal Bicep files. I already have a resource group in here. I want to create an Azure Key Vault, and I want to use that module inside this file. So I'm gonna say Azure-key vault.bicep. Here, we want to create our Azure Key Vault. The first thing is that we need to say the target scope. A Key Vault belongs to a resource group too. So the target scope will be resource group, and then we need to have a resource. We use the resource keyword, and we say demo key vault, and it would be key vaults, and again I'm using the latest version, and now we have these required properties. We need a name for that one, so we are gonna say like kv-demo-bicep. This name needs to be unique, so I'm just gonna add my initials to there. Let's see, and then we have a location. I'm gonna parameterize the location for our module as well, so I'm just copy this value here and I'm pasting it in there, and I'm gonna say region. But here I'm gonna make it mandatory, so whoever is using this module needs to specify explicitly where the region for this key vault should be. For the SKU family, there's just one option, and it is A, and here I'm gonna create a standard SKU. We need a tenant ID, so I'm gonna put tenant ID in a variable. I will describe momentarily why we need that one. So I'm in a subscription, of course, when I'm running, and I want this to have the same tenant ID, and I'm gonna use that tenant ID in here. Resources should also have tags. I'm gonna add a tag named purpose, and the value for this would be education, for example. Access policies. When we are creating a key vault, we need to give access to at least one security principle that we have. So in access policies, it's an array of objects that those objects has an object ID, has a list of permissions. We need to mention the tenant ID, and I'm using the same tenant ID because I was about to use tenant ID in two places. I extracted that as a variable in here, so it is there. And the object ID, I'm gonna give a permission to my user. So if we go in here, I could run AD user, show me for this user ID, me at shop.the guy.dev, and I'm querying for the ID of that one, and I'm outputting that into a TSV. It just prints that like as a plain text for me without any quotation or something else. So I'm just gonna copy this value, and I'm gonna put it into, I don't need to, I could put it in here. So I think that double quotes is not the right one. So we need to use single quotation. For the permissions, we have different sorts of permissions. We need to define permissions for the secrets, for the keys, for certificates, for the storage. Here I'm gonna create some secrets, so I'm gonna say all permissions. It's an array if I'm not mistaken, yes. So I'm gonna say all permissions. I will show the values of these things momentarily, like what could be put in here. Uh, I think for now it's fine. We defined our demo key vault in here with the location, the name, some tags, and the permissions and the SKU that we defined. Another feature for the uh, extension that we installed here is that we could right click on our file and we could say uh, open bicep visualizer. I'm opening it in the side. So here you see that I just have this resource group.demo because I'm not referencing any module in here. I'm gonna reference our module that we created. I'm using a snippet in here. We have an identifier for that module that will be shown in here. So I'm gonna say my Azure Key Vault, and the path for that would be /Azure Key Vault.bicep. And again, we will have like required properties. If I hit that, okay, we're gonna give it a name. This name will be shown in the deployments in the Azure portal. So this would be um, demo-key vault deployment. And I'm gonna wait a moment. Yeah, then we need to pass params. Oh, the params that we had was region, and I'm gonna pass region that we have in here. The other thing is that this module contains a key vault which does not match a target scope of subscriptions. So we need here to define the scope for this resource, and I'm gonna say the scope for this resource is the resource group that we created. And you will see now the diagrams updated, and we know, okay, what we have in this module and how the dependencies there is. It's a nice feature. You could have an overview of what you already have there. Let me just move them a little bit in here, so I have them like cleaned up. Okay, I think we should be fine for now. I'm just closing this visualizer, opening this in here. Let's run another time our deployment, az deployment with the what if command. Let's see what will be created, what would happen to our Azure resources after running this command. The results are back. So here after our what if command, we will see that we have a new creation, and that creation is our key vault with these properties there. Let's run that one, and with a no wait command, let's run it, and we should have our key vault deployed to our environment. Okay, let's get back to the portal. Let's see if our Azure Key Vault is already deployed or not. Let's refresh. Okay, our Key Vault is deployed. I'm going to our Key Vault. You will see that it has the tags that we specified in the access policies. you will see that my user has get, list, set, delete, recover, backup and restore permissions. It has all of them because I mentioned all. I would go with get, list, and set for the moment. So I'm gonna reduce that one. But you see, it's easily deployed here. Then let's get back in here. Let's replace this one with these values, and then run the deployment again. I'm gonna run it with what if command. Okay, here you will see that we have some deletion, creation, and modification. And you will see that our key vault and its permissions will be modified by deleting the all permissions and creating the get, list, and set permissions. Let's do that. Okay, let's see whether those changes took effect. Here we refresh, we see that we just have these things. The other thing that we mentioned is that our bicep files are idempotent and they are describing the desired state. So I'm not going to change anything in here, and I'm going to run the what if command again. And the thing that we should see is that there should be no changes there. And if I run the AZ deployment subcreate again without the what if operation, then it should not change anything on the resources that we have. That's the definition of idempotency. So I ran them once and I want to run it the second time or the third time or the fourth time, as far as I haven't changed anything in any of my bicep files that are connected to each other, or my module or my bicep file, then nothing should be changed actually. And you will see there's no changes in the scopes that I have designed. Like in this scope, I have just this resource group, and this scope, which is my resource group scope, I have this key vault without any changes. And it doesn't matter if I also run this command or not, as far as there's no changes detected, then there will be no changes out there. There are also resources that you could rely on. For example, I could Google Bicep Azure Key Vault, and then here I could go there, and you will see that you have different deployment languages. You could choose Bicep, you could choose ARM templates, or even Terraform. Everything is provided here, so you could have hands on what each properties mean, and which one is required, which one is optional, and what you want to do. This is something that you could do for almost every resource that is available on Azure. Another thing that might be interesting is the Bicep Playground. Let's get there. And here you could define your resources. For example, let me copy one of these files, one of the things that I have in here, and it will immediately give you the ARM template that is needed for that will be generated for this resource. And actually in VS Code, you could also have that. You could right click on that and say build ARM template. And here you will see that we have the ARM template created for that resource group. And you will see that it's way complicated than the Bicep files itself. Yes, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a nice day and enjoy coding.